Okay, we're doing it. Dun 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 dun. Whose theme song is that? It's Barrett's, but we're not here to talk about Final Fantasy VII, but I will talk about it. So, salvete. Mihi nomen est Stella and et hoc est. Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 202, the shipper special number 10 for February MMXXI. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by the Batman Universe and Strangers in Paradise podcast from Two True Freaks. Batgirl the Oracle is also brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out MileHighComics.com. Well, friends, this almost didn't happen because this guy, my guest, put me through the emotional ringer. He's all about the quid pro quo, like our former president. And he said, I played Last of Us. You need to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I became emotionally invested. And he didn't really prepare me for the things that were about to happen. So I've been yelling at him all week. That is not an exaggeration. I have sent him some angry voicemails when he's at work. But we are here. We're here for the 10th shipper. I think he's been on all of them but 9. But the 8th one, I guess, when I had Chuck Dixon and betrayed you. So it is we'll call him for today, my beloved Donovan Morgan Grant.
Hello. I started to think. There was the Green Lantern Hawker one. There was the Robotech one, which is still my favorite. There was last year's Maid Sama. There was the BTS episode one. There was the Spider-Man one. There was the Oron one. There was the Mad Love one. This is the 8th one that we're doing.
It should be the 9th that we've been together.
The 9th one that we've done.
So
this
we
is the
missed
10th one.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yep. So is there one that we're missing?
There might be listeners, right?
Oh, didn't we do queer couples?
Yes, we did.
So that would have been the other one that we did. Yeah.
That's right. That was good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome back. It's good that it's the 10th. I didn't really even think about the significance of it being number 10, but it's good that you're back for number 10. And we actually went back and forth on what to do here, and I'm going to talk about this whole thing because that was another poor guy. I feel bad for what I did to Donovan because I just kept reiterating. I really did, reiterating, okay, and clarifying, okay, this is what I mean by this. But at first we thought... And you're going to have to, I'm going to try to edit as much as possible, but I went on a run. And when I go on a run in cold weather, I usually cough and clear my throat a lot, but I try not to on the show. But at first we thought, video gaming couples, that'd be interesting.
Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah, I had yet to play Final Fantasy VII, but now that I have it, it's like fuel for if we do this next year. And then the other one is, you said, what about DC Comics couples? And so I thought, okay, we can do that. And then I just thought it was so broad. So I kept narrowing it down. Mm-hmm. And we've come to, the subtitle I have is DC Comics Influential Romances. And of course, I post that on Twitter and people start coming at me, the ones that they feel. I think I saw Supergirl and Brainiac. What is it, 5? Brainiac 5?
Yes.
And I saw Ralph and Sue Dibney, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a twist. So I kept going back to Don, and I was like, this is what I mean. Influential on us. How did it influence our personal journeys, our reading journeys? Did it change us, if anything? And I also wanted I want it to be an interesting list. I didn't want it to be chock full of Catwoman and Batman or Superman and Lois and all of that stuff, which they're great couples, but I feel like there's another place for them. So I think that's as far as I'm going to explain it. I feel like Don and I still might interpret influential differently. And so that's why we're going to give space once we name the couple and when we discovered it, why it's influential on us or how we interpret that. But I think it'll be, for me personally, this was a difficult list to come up with. I think it's going to surprise and shock people. spoiler alert, Nightwing and Tarantula might be my number one.
Are you still saying that?
No, I've said it so many times to him. Prerequisites, though, we decided it was romantic. Donovan, he came down, he said, hey, it's Valentine's Day. Let's just do romantic. So not platonic or familial, because I think there's another list to be had there. Romance, not necessarily an official couple.
Yes.
That's
I
big.
have one that's not official.
Yeah. And then cannot be without basis. So it cannot be, even though I think we like our fan ships from time to time, there has to be some evidence that these two may have gotten together somehow. And we're sticking to the comics because I think that's another thing I tried, because a lot of the couples I was thinking of with DC, I thought I've been really influenced by the other media, like TV, cartoons. And so I think that's just another list. So comics influences on that. That might be different. Or did you do other stuff or did you stick to comics?
I edged towards other media for a little bit, but ultimately my list is just comics.
Okay. I think that's fine. So like I said, I think Don and I, to a certain extent, might interpret this differently, but I think that's why this might be a really interesting show, because I don't know what Don's going to say. I don't think Don's going to know what I'm going to say. I think some of these might honestly shock him, and I did not go in for shock value. But I will say that, remember, I am the queen of counter opinions, or, anti-opinions of some people. I love Batman and Robin, so I fully expect some people to be displeased with my choices or why I've chosen them. I'm fully ready for this. But John, do you have anything to say? I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it for shock value. I'm just like, this, I love this couple. I love it for this reason, and I got it from this. And there might be people like, you're sick. You're sick. So we'll see.
Do you have any? That.
Huh?
I have to know. I really want to find out what these couples, these controversial, like like that canceled. I need to know what that is.
There might be one. I think the reason, but not the couple. I'm like ready for. Do you have anything before we get into this of like what you would like to say or how you interpreted it or going into this? How did you feel? Was it difficult for you to come up with these, especially since I was super annoying and like, Donovan, I just want to be sure we're on the same page here.
Well, I'm glad you did, honestly, because you said right off the bat that you didn't want it to be like your straight, like, Superman and Lois, like Green Arrow, Black Canary ones, like the ones that are like more iconic rather than like I don't want to say interesting, but like, more iconic, more, that's like what you say about first and foremost about them. And I was like, cool. But I did kind of like initially go into the list just like, oh, my favorite couples. And when you kind of say, let's just do more influential ones, it was never like difficult, but it was tricky. Like I couldn't just like absent-mindedly approach that idea. I was like, okay, let me think about when I was reading. So a lot of this is really kind of like chronological towards my own reading. And I know there's one on this list that like I don't think I've ever talked about on podcasts, but it shouldn't be like, like what? It just be like, oh, okay, interesting. It's also quite toxic. But but I also kind of went with ones that are not only were influential because, when you're a young boy, when you're a young, like, cishet boy, you don't like romance. Like, my least favorite parts of Batman Forever were the ones with the parts with Nicole Kidman when I was younger. So, like, I had to think about, like, which were the, and I'll get into this later, which were the romances that, like, I was not only not turned off by, but actively was engaged in reading about as I got older. And so I think that influences my list the most for me personally. But boy, no, I'm really excited for your list now. It's like, ooh, people aren't going to like it. I was like, oh, I'll probably like it.
I think they'll see. I agree with you. I think that word is huge, engaged. How engaged was I with this, and did it really strike me in some way that I wanted to continue on reading about them or search out other material that I could find them in and look up their history. So I would agree with you on that assessment too.
Cool.
Okay, now I had no honorable mentions. I remember you said you had 5, and I thought you better whittle that down. Did you want to do honorable mentions now or wait until you get close to your number 1 so that I still go first?
I will. I do have 5 honorable mentions, but I will wait.
Okay. I had 5 honorable mentions. I was struggling, and here this guy is just an easy time of it. Okay, well, I'm going first this year, and it is because Donovan went first last year. So let's do my first share screen. So I'll describe them, of course, for listeners. Oh, I wonder if I'll be able to.
Let me be surprised.
Yeah, the listeners though will be different. Okay, I'll do this one first. Oh wow, he's shielding his eyeballs.
Yes.
Okay, my number 5 is, you can look now. It is Bruce Wayne and Julie Madison.
Oh, no.
Now, specifically during Scott Snyder's Batman run.
Mm-hmm.
So I discovered this in 2015. And this was one of the reasons, Julie Madison, as well as focusing on Bruce Wayne rather than Bruce Wayne as Batman, was one of the reasons that I fell in love with Super Heavy. I think Super Heavy is actually my favorite Snyder arc, which I know goes against the grain. Some people don't like it. Other people love other arcs. But this one was actually my favorite for me because, for me, it revitalized the Bruce Wayne character. I really started to care about him as Bruce Wayne rather than Batman. It made me root for him. And honestly, it showed that me, as well as other people, that he could be happy without Batman, and he could, have a loved one here. And yes, I do love Batman and Catwoman, but this was just like something really new. And I don't have the history that Josh does with, because I know he knows all about this particular character. But man, I just loved it so much. I loved all of the scenes with them. I felt like it was really tender, got to see a different side of him. And it just made me, one of the reasons why it made me really disappointed when he went back to being Batman. So this image is from 46, Batman 46. And then I had a steamy scene that I found.
Yes.
So I can pull that one. Of course.
You look at me over it.
As the, not a Nicola Scott steamy scene, but close.
It's actually because I actually didn't read most of Super Heavy, or if I did, I don't remember much of it.
Here's this in the shower here. Talking about marriage. And yeah, so just having, fun conversations. I think he's brought back, there are a couple scenes in other, maybe it was like 44, 45, just getting like a childish Bruce as well. So it's almost like, what would Bruce Wayne be like without that Batman past with him? Because I feel like that, to a certain extent, shatters him, damages him, I guess. And this was, I don't know, it's just a really nice relationship for Bruce that did not seem toxic, was not found, it was not predicated, how about that? It was not predicated on any sort of tragedy. The other person seemed pretty morally upright. She's helping people. They can relate to each other on several different levels. So this is just one of the reasons I just really loved it. And like I said, I think the main reason why it was so influential for me is that it really revitalized, I think, the character, and also gave me a new appreciation of him, and also wished for more for him. Because sometimes where I am in the 2000s, it's hard because I keep calling him Batjerk because I feel like he deserves it. And
Yes.
it's just like, man, is there any out for this guy? That will he ever find a happy ending? And then I saw it right here. So that's why it's my number 5. So it's not, my favorite, but it was certainly one that I really enjoyed.
That's cool. And it's interesting because like a lot of times, like, is this the, can I ask, and can you answer if this is the only time that Bruce Wayne appears in this list?
It is.
Okay, so like, like most heroes, he had love interests throughout most of his history. And then like by the time he gets to Dark Knight Returns, the idea that Batman didn't require love interest kind of became accepted. So he, around the time of Batgirl, what that we're in right now, no, there was no love interest. I mean, there was characters that there would be the potential for romance, like Sacha Bordeaux or whatever, but there wasn't really any relationships, like Vesper Fairchild and stuff. So like something like this is pretty foreign to like our generation's Batman fandom. And I know I really like Scott Snyder. Like, whether I like all of his stories or not, like I always like him as a person. But also I think that like he always has a good spirit when it comes to these characters. like he understands the Bruce Wayne Dick Grayson relationship pretty well. And like I said, this is after I abandoned everybody in the Batman universe. So I didn't read a lot of super heavy, but like from what I read about it, I liked it fair enough. But I didn't recall too much of this. Like I don't know how they met and such. But like this was a different version of Julie Madison. But I did like the idea that like one of his original love interests, because she's the first one. She's like one of those Bill Finger Bob Kane characters who appeared like within the first 5 issues of Batman's appearances in Detective Comics. So I like the fact that one of his best shown relationships is with a notable character, one that like has a long history with him going back to the 30s. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And I just thought she was really cool, like a cool design. I mean, she's really pretty, but she has kind of a Art Nouveau edge to her with the tattoos that she has. Yeah. I just feel like, oh man, yeah, it was just a lot of fun and super heavy. Turned out to be my favorite run there. And then I made a mistake. So the shower scene's from 46, and then that nice scene in the office was from 43. But yeah, so Bruce Wayne and Joey Madison is my number 5.
Excellent. Very, very cool. Okay, so when you said influential, like, so this kind of influenced your idea for Batman's like potential as a character, rather than somebody that like Barbara Gordon can just yell about his money in the Batcave.
Yeah, because I feel like, for me, and you get on me a little bit of how hard I am on Batman. I just feel, oh man, it's almost like Batman will always be Batman. There's no hope for him in the end. And this was almost like, oh man, we're look at the hope that we have. And I think it showed that someone like Batman, and there's another one on my list as well, that heroes can in fact be coupled. There doesn't have to be unnecessary drama, doesn't have to be damaged or again predicated on some sort of tragedy, that it's all possible. So that I think also gave me hope, because comics, I just feel like you're either going to break them up or something tragic is going to happen to the other half. Like they can't always be together. Batman and Catwoman did not get married, that sort of thing. So it just gave me hope, and I thought it was really nice.
Excellent. Will mine be as iconic? Because I would say that like maybe if Bruce and Julie Madison aren't iconic, they're definitely notable. So will mine compare? I'll let you decide.
Who's you, me, or the listeners?
The person I'm looking at, which are the listeners now. My number 5, as you bring it up, I'll let you bring up the image first, and then I'll declare it.
I'll declare it. Here it is. Oh, I smell a betrayal.
You do?
A betrayal.
My number 5 is Dick Grayson and Bridget Clancy. What do you mean betrayal? Oh, okay. So Dick's like a one-woman girl. Okay, yeah. Okay, before Stella rants, as I was young, my first introduction with Dick Grayson was 2 things. It was Batman the Animated Series and the 60s Batman show. So when he was Nightwing, I learned he was Nightwing in the comics. I was like, okay, that's interesting. So when the Nightwing title started in 1997, and my brother and I were reading it, we were introduced to Dick Grayson's landlord in his apartment in Bloodhaven, Bridget Clancy. And they do this kind of thing where there's a meet cute where like she's like, she was born in Hong Kong, but like she was adopted by an Irish family, so she speaks with an Irish brogue. And so they kind of mix each other a few times. It's very Mary Jane in the beginning, where he doesn't know what she looks like, so he doesn't know that she looks the way she does. And you get to know each other, and there's definitely a mutual attraction, but Dick always has to run off and be Nightwing. And it was interesting because this is a Nightwing that's very much, he's away from the Titans, he's away from Gotham City, he's away from Batman and Robin, he's very much establishing himself as his own guy, and he has a completely normal, healthy woman who's not some alien who may or may not be on the spectrum, or whatever his thing might be with Barbara Gordon. Maybe more on that later, maybe not. It was a relationship that seemed perfectly healthy, that unfortunately never materialized to the full extent. Like they try to go on a few dates. They do go on a few dates. What would happen sometimes is that like they would go on a date, they would really like each other, and then immediately after he like drops her off, like Oracle calls him, and I'm like, okay, I see what you did there, Dixon. And it got to the point where like he talked her into going to medical school while he was going to the police academy, and they were both advancing in their own personal lives, and they felt accomplish together. And so they share a kiss, and I know she wants to like get with him in his apartment. And then like he sees an image of him and Barbara.
At the beach, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's in the second image.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And he's like, and by the time he is genuinely like actually getting closer to Barbara again, he's like, hey, I got this thing going on with somebody else, so this might not be the best time. And so she goes and she cries, and that's kind of it. Now I again like the Dick and Babs relationship was kind of already kind of set as an idea in my head, but like this to me felt like I saw this kind of thing start up, and I wasn't expecting this to end up in tears. Oh, I don't know what I was expecting, but like I was like, oh well, she's his love interest in the book, and like it was kind of just like shut down. And it was shut down in some ways because of his Nightwing identity, right? Like he knows Barbara through his costume identity, so it's like they would seemingly be perfect with each other if he wasn't Nightwing. And seeing that for Dick Grayson as a character, that kind of really helped me. Again, I'm young, right? So I'm not somebody with a fully graduated education on the character. That kind of really informed me on sort of like the problems in his life. And it's not just his relationship with Batman or his villains or whatever. It's like what kind of person does he want to be, and what kind of baggage does that person bring with that kind of life. So I don't know. She was one of the few people to not be in Bloodhaven when it blew up, which was good. But she's not appeared in like 10, 15 years. But like I've always had a soft spot for this relationship.
Yeah. Do you think so? You have kind of let it, or the way you were speaking, that you don't think this would ever work out, just because of his nightlife. If Barbara Gordon weren't in the picture, do you think is that all possible that these two could have had a pretty decent relationship, or would it have had to lead to him revealing who he is, a la Spider-Man?
Right. I think it was always doomed to fail because of like the Dick and Babs thing. If Oracle didn't exist and it was just Nightwing, I think it would have eventually not worked out. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, like she was intelligent. She wasn't like somebody who hated Nightwing or anything like that. So like, but I feel that like Dick kind of had. I mean, without saying so, he kind of had that like great responsibility kind of thing where he refused to let his personal life and his private life like he was never somebody to just like casually tell somebody who was Nightwing. Mm-hmm. So, and because that always lead back to Batman. Sure. So like, I never, when I look back on it, it seems doomed to fail. But I don't know. I still have fond memories of it. She's a good character.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason why I didn't latch on to the couple is because Dick and Babs, are always there, so it'd always be overshadowed. So I think I didn't really give her the benefit of the doubt. However, I did like the character, and I like how they did it almost in a Spider-Man fashion of you didn't know who this person was.
Yes.
Gender, whoever, kind of like hiding Mary Jane with the flowers or things like that. And then having, cute moments with them. So I enjoyed seeing them together, but always knew, in the end that it was going to be Babs. But this was actually a heartbreaking scene. I mean, the fact that clearly she has pretty strong feelings for him, and it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, she was going to originally, a week ago when I thought we were recording this, she was actually she was going to be an honorable mention, but like when you said influential, I was like, actually she's much stronger in my memory in that context than before.
Yeah. Oh.
Tragic, isn't it?
It is sad.
And it gets sadder from here.
Oh no. Well, same for me actually. Okay. So now on to my number 4. This is one where people might be upset.
Yes.
At my choice of one. I mean, maybe not, but okay. So my number 4 is, in fact, one of the ones that people's on the Twitters wanted. It's Ralph and Sue Dibney.
Oh, snap.
So I think that I'm fine with that. People aren't going to cancel me. The reason why is Identity Crisis. And that's why people will cancel me. They're like, you've got to be kidding me. But yeah, I discovered them in 2005 with Identity Crisis. And I know that people do not like that. I think maybe they hate it. but it's actually one of my favorite DC stories, period. And I actually reread, remember you gave me the Absolute Edition, Donovan, for maybe my birthday several years ago. I actually reread that uh, on Saturday, actually, to prepare for this. And it's just like,
Nice.
oh man, this is so good. But really, I fell in love, and this is all in issue 1, because obviously we know that Sue meets her demise at the end of issue 1. But just looking back at their history, I fell in love with this couple, how the relationship is presented, getting to know them, and then afterwards really seeing the devotion that Ralph and even others had towards Sue throughout the rest of the story was just really huge. And then one of the first ongoing series that I ever started reading, because 2005 was like a big comic year for me, where I really got into actually reading comics consistently. I started reading 52, the weekly series, and
Mm.
Ralph is a huge part of that, and trying to resurrect his wife. And then at the end, they actually have a nice little happy ending where they're both together, kind of in the afterlife, or like as ghosts, and they can do a dead man thing. But just, oh, it's so sweet, this panel right here where he and Barry show up, and he would think that she would have eyes only for Barry, but she actually just has eyes for him. And then my other one is also
Her
from
dead.
issue 1. Do, do, do,
It's
do.
not. It's not her burnt body, is it?
Oh, good no, I mean, I may have issues, but I'm not that bad. That'd be terrible.
Trigger warning.
This one, yeah, I know, seriously. With the league around, like she
Oh
was
yeah,
able to, I think she was made an honorary member, and just being around, and just the devotion that they have. And every year she has this mystery for his birthday, and she tries to trip him up. And I
that's a
mean,
gorgeous
obviously
image.
everything is super tragic, but just how loving this relationship is presented, I enjoyed it. Yeah. And I latched on. I think one of the reasons why I latched on to that story is like I felt I was engaged, there's that word again, and really wanting to know who is this terrible person that destroyed this loving relationship. And then continuing with Ralph's story when I was reading 52, which was again one of my first ongoing, and they get a happy ending to a certain extent. But yeah, I think it's influential, period. I would agree with the person who said that on Twitter, but for me, this is the reason why it's big for me and my reading history.
I'm right there with you. I love Identity Crisis. I get.
Finally, I can't
uh,
find you. I can't find people like you.
oh yeah, I'm not mentioned before. Like I do get why people don't like it, but when people are like, Identity Crisis, that obviously sucks. There's no reason why anybody would like it. That's not true.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, like we have our kind of like hot spots with the Batman film and all kind of stuff, but like we admire the DC universe and kind of seeing the DC. I love this whole DC universe story where I love just how personable everyone was with each other. Like they very rarely talk to each other with their code names as all their kind of their given name. I liked understanding the dynamics of the various teams. It's like the JLA tell you, the Justice Society teaches you how to be heroes, and the Teen Titans teach you how to be your family, but the JLA teaches you how to fight. I like the different colored caption boxes and thought processes. I thought everyone was like really in character, and I thought the artwork was awesome. And I understand there's a lot of very strong political elements, both in the treatment of women and just in comic book, just writing in general, that absolutely hold it back. I am not afraid of that conversation, nor do I even disagree with it that much. But I think that I agree with you. I didn't know that like there was this big elongated man, Ralph and Sue Dibny like marriage story in the DC history. Like I remember there was like a JLI miniseries that came out a couple years before this. I remember it was another Kevin Maguire cover, and I do remember seeing Ralph and Sue Dibny there, but that didn't register any history with me. So seeing this here, I was like, oh, okay. And and we like learning stuff like this. So no, I think this is a strong choice. And because I don't think you need to read like Silver Age Flash comics to appreciate them when you're reading Identity Crisis #1, even though it is ultimately quite tragic.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I think reading this, each time I read it, I feel like I get something new out of it. And as I grow older and I think my ideas are better formed and my life experience also, I think about things a little bit more. And this time I was considering a lot the mind wiping and all that went down, and then the Batman situation, and just all of, that moral implication, what does this mean? And the people on the outside like Kyle and Wally really judging them for it, and yeah, so it's an interesting ride. And the rape scene, I think, is,
I was going to ask you about that.
it's hard to you're like, oh man, did you need to do this? And then what's even worse than if there could be the rape scene is when Dr. Light uses his light powers to like replay it in front of the heroes. Like, for me, that's almost the worst panel, I think, there. And that's hard. I wonder if there was any other way. Could you have just maybe this sounds bad, like just beat her up and that be, the thing? But
I was going to ask you, because we talked about this with the Killing Joke. Like, if you had a chance, if you had some like sort of superpowers, would you go back and have that not? I mean, like, do you think that like that should have happened, or do you think that like it's a fictional story, it's merited?
It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to the Killing Joke, isn't it? Because it certainly rouses the men and the women, because Zatanna and Black Canary were there. I feel like there could have been something else that was less traumatic still done, because the whole point was it was done to Sue. Sorry. It was done to Sue, and everyone loved Sue. So of course it brought them together. So I feel like there had to be something lower tier on the violence / trauma that they could have done with that.
I mean, I feel that like you're kind of talking about this when in one of your many angry voicemails regarding Proposition 7, but like the threat of sexual violence against women.
Yeah, Don Corneo. Oof.
Well,
we need to talk about that, but not on this show.
Well, what I will say is that like I will throw myself up to as much full-throated criticism as is warranted about what I'm going to say. As a guy, I don't find that. I don't find that ineligible as in regards to storytelling, in terms of like people like bad guys threatening women in that way. I don't find it to be that happens, and I don't blink at that. I do understand actually depicting or doing that. That's a step too far. But I don't personally, as my gender, understand or recognize the distance between the threat of sexual violence and the act of sexual violence in regards to like are they exactly the same? It should never be done, or is one and the other the other? So like to me, if Dr. Light showed up and he was absolutely intending on doing that, but like when Flash shows up and that's happening, and then like he does the light thing without Sue actually having gone through that, would people be as upset? And I don't know. I mean, it really is. I think it really is a question that I've not had an answer to.
That if he made it before, I don't know. Like she was in the stage of undress or something, or he was in the stage of undressing her. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the impact would have still been there. Yeah. Or it would. I wonder how the story would have changed because she was rushed off to the hospital right away. Ralph takes her off, and so he doesn't even do the vote. But I wonder, like, what if she had been a part of that vote? How powerful that would have been to give her, because she has no agency in this. I mean, she's taken off, like she is. It's a woman in refrigerator, really, even though she's alive. But if she had been there and like, it's up to you, Sue. Do you want, this guy is out of control now? How do you feel about that? And be the deciding factor, because wasn't Barry was the
because he was a widower. And what did Zatanna and Dinah say to her? How did they talk about the aftermath of that?
Yeah. What would would this have been before Longbow Hunters?
I mean, chronologically, yeah, because like this takes place like I think originally the comics would have been like around the 60s, I think.
Okay. So that would have been interesting.
Or maybe the 70s, because like they mentioned that Iris had died, so maybe the 70s.
Yeah. So anyone, I mean, of everyone, Black Canary would have been the most compassionate and empathetic because she had been there. But there was no scene between those two, which is interesting because she could have certainly talked to Sue. I wonder what
that's a lost that's a missed potential, or that's a missed opportunity.
And what's also interesting, I mean, now we're going to be talking about identity crisis, but what's also interesting is how divided that vote is for Dr. Light, but then it was unanimous for Batman. I feel
Yeah.
like, wouldn't you be even more like that's a team member? Shouldn't that be even more divided than Dr. Light? I would have switched that. Like, seriously, I have problems with, mind wiping Batman. That's a no-go. But
Well, it's funny because I love the scene when they freeze Batman, and you have Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and Black Canary, who they were in the O'Neil Adams run, right? So like they are together, and all of them are like completely appalled, and Oliver hauls off and punches Carter in the face, like,
yep.
but they're still like, who are we fooling?
Yeah.
We gotta do it. Like I've never even got personally reconciled with that decision, because I just think it's good storytelling. I've never really said, like, it's never made me think that like you guys are bad for doing this. I just never like stopped and thought about that.
Yeah.
I just kind of took it as read. But yeah, no. I mean, I get it. Like when we were at Dragon Con, myself, Bertoni, John Wilson had joined Michael Bailey. He was on a panel talking about this story. And I said, I reread it in anticipation for it, and I always really like it. But when I got to that scene with Dr. Light and Sue in 2019, I was kind of like, you know what, I'm having a harder time reading this part than I did when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And it does warrant a lot of the criticism, at least in terms of people's emotions that it garnered. That being said, this is one. I'm right with you. This is absolutely one of my top 3 favorite DC stories of all time.
There's so many amazing scenes in it, if you were to erase that one. But yeah,
Robin,
I always love the fight scene with Deathstroke. I'm like, that dude, because just how easily he's able to take everybody out. It's interesting now, there seems to be almost rape media or rape literature, or I guess like rape revenge. We were very in passing talking about A Promising Young Woman. I'm thinking of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So it's interesting just how I don't know, rape can almost become weaponized in turning the person who has been raped into like a vengeful protagonist. And so I wonder what sort of implications that might have on people, viewers, the future. I don't know.
Yeah, because when you throw Dragon Tattoo, I remember it being completely. I didn't, when I saw the movie very recently, I did not see it coming out. My dad was in the room, who had already seen it, so I was squirming.
Yeah, I remember you texted me. You're like, "Have you ever seen this?" And I said, "Yes, I actually enjoyed that series, but it's rough." Yeah, it's rough.
I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it. And like Harrison, our
Harold,
our mutual beloved, he has a line in one of his latest videos. Kind of regarding like on No Means Yes, kind of like scene in an old movie where he says, he said is if I'm going to watch a rape scene, I'm going to think, what's the point? And I think that should be the leading guide into that's regarding that kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, not to plug my own show, but I will. But you do it all the time anyways. And I plug your show by making fun of it. But Tom and I just did Catcher in the Rye. Should come out this month, February. And one of the, people either like or don't like Holden Caulfield. But one of the great things about him that I brought up to Tom is that he is really sensitive to what the girlfriends that he's with say. So if they say anything close to no, he backs way the heck off.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I thought it was really interesting at that time compared to other characters in that book, and just that he also lies all the time and has some angst issues, but I appreciate that, Colton. Well, that was my number 4. We just went off on an identity crisis tangent. I mean, I could talk about that for a long time. Yes. What is I'll pull it up, I guess. Your number 4? This looks like a salacious image.
Yeah, put it up there.
I have it.
Do it now.
Great Scott. Oh, what's happened? Oh, my gosh. This
My
is
number
some
four.
BDSM right here.
I suppose. I mean, it always is with the Bat family. Look at how they're dressed.
That's true.
Tim Drake and Cassandra Cain, my two favorite characters. So this is sort of the imaginary one ish.
Okay.
And so often I didn't growing up reading kind of like becoming slowly accumulating to romance and storytelling. I was never really one to like imagine, oh, I wonder if they got together or what have you. But I did grow to like, I mean, I've always loved Tim Drake. That was an early favorite of mine. And when I considered Cassandra Cain, and she's pretty cool. I was noticing their friendship and Batgirl 18, and there's that no man's land issue of Robin where Tim has time with her. He's like, oh, she scares me and stuff, and he admits that later on. And back and forth they kind of team up. When what?
I don't know, this image is like out of context and that's why it looks so sexy, but I don't think you'll have to remind me of what the context is, but out of context it's like, oh my gosh, when were they in this situation? But keep going.
Yeah, that's so when Stephanie Brown died, quote unquote, and after War Games they both went to Bloodhaven. They were kind of adrift, and there was a 4-part story that crossed over between the background pages of Robin where they fought the Penguin, and they were kind of working out together, and they were kind of getting to know each other better. And Tim discovers how good of a friend Stephanie was to Cassandra, and while Cassandra is finding herself growing closer to Tim, and she's not thinking romantically, but she is like growing closer to him, like just like objectively. But when they do, it kind of is like sort of like Oracle with the Bridget scenes where like Bridget Clancy scenes where she's like, oh, that's right, Stephanie was his girlfriend. He must be feeling awful. I should not talk about how good of friends we were because she would mention the whole sparring thing that they would do, and if Tim blames himself and if Cassandra blames herself, which Cassandra did because Cassandra's guilty about everything, and there was just a very apparent like it's kind of similar to how it was when Superboy died and Wonder Girl and Robin kissed at one point.
Yeah.
But I thought that was much less well written. Even though I didn't object to that.
That was like a Jason Babs. I was thinking about that the other day, like a Jason Babs, heat of the moment. Let's kiss.
Right. Yes. I mean, they don't kiss, but like there is an absence with Stephanie that is filled with like I think potential for romance with the two of them. So they definitely come closer. So when Dan DiDio hired Aya Beecham to ruin everything, after 1 year later, Batman goes on a tour around the world to train his family, Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, and nobody else, and just leaves Cassandra. And they come back, and long story short, Cassandra has seemingly taken over the League of Assassins, has re-killed Lynx, and wants Tim to join her to lead the League of Assassins together. And she's basically saying, yeah, you and me, buddy. It's kind of like Maxima and Superman, or Talia and Batman. Like we can rule this together as husband and wife kind of thing. Yeah, that was trite. Eventually, after fans said, "What are you doing?" they said, "Oh, you know what? The Deathstroke brainwashed her because he had a grudge on her after she beat up Rose in her title." So this scene here is from Teen Titans, where the Titans go to save Cassandra, and you see that Cassandra is like genuinely like getting repeatedly brainwashed by Deathstroke as revenge, and like whenever Cassandra is brainwashed to be evil, not only does she want to kill people, but she wants some Tim Drake, which is interesting because in her own book, it's not as though when she was away from Tim, she thought of him a lot. I mean, she had this brief fling with Connor, and she had one sort of boyfriend near the end of her run, sort of. But like this was kind of an interesting thing that kind of kept coming back. And so when you go towards the pages of Red Robin, where she's all better now, she's a hero again, Tim goes to her and asks her to come back to the Bat family while she's doing her own thing. And of course, they pair off in Gates of Gotham. There is this sort of repeated, interesting chemistry that they have. Now, the second image I have is from, there was a series called Solo in which various comic creators would have a chance to kind of just write and draw short stories, whatever they wanted. I mean, Darwin Cook had an issue, Tim Seal had an issue, Howard Chaykin had an issue. And if you
May
go to,
I interrupt you just before I put that up?
yes,
Sorry. This back here, what is this? It looks like a glass case of clothing. Whose clothing is that? Do you know?
I don't remember.
Okay, I just
I
wanted to
don't
be
remember.
like, please tell me it's not Martha and Thomas that Bruce has. This is in his cave and he's put his parents' clothing in one of those
No, no,
cases.
no. I think they're in some sort of like. I think they were like attacked. The Titans have attacked Deathstroke. Like they're not in
Okay.
Gotham.
Okay. I just,
No,
I
that's
was
fine.
concerned. Okay. So apologies about interrupting. Go back. The solo series.
So in Solo, it was a spotlight issue with Damian Scott, who is the awesome Batgirl artist, and he wrote a short story. He wrote two short stories that are of note. One was with Stephanie Brown's Robin and Cass's Batgirl, but another one was a story he came up with where it was years in the future, and Tim is Batman, and Cassandra is like, I mean, she's still Batgirl. She's like, Batwoman or what have you. And he's like, when I was doing Batgirl, and he later on moved on to Robin, I always thought these two worked well together, and I always kind of imagined them ending up together. So it's this kind of short story where Cassandra knows that like Tim is driven, but he's not as obsessive as Bruce, who she admired, and Tim is always worried that he's not doing his best, but he's not let Cassandra down, who always impresses him. And at the end, there's nearly like a marriage proposal before they both like go off and fight for time together. But like, yeah, it's a story with like Tim and Cass as a couple, which is like, it's not canon, but it was done by a comic book professional. So I love these characters, and I like the idea of them together. I'm sure some people want to smack the taste out of my mouth and say like
Ooh.
Tim and Steph forever.
See, we're both saying controversial things tonight.
Yeah, but the different will the difference being I don't care, because I know I don't care.
Oh, I see.
I if they were to ever end up together, I think that would be cool. Now, obviously, we would need to know what Stephanie thinks about that.
Yeah.
But I kind of, not heavily, but I've kind of, shipped them, and I'm not afraid to say so.
Would you prefer her over Stephanie? Or would you choose your third option and have him with Ariana?
I again on that later. You know what? Yeah, I think I would like refer him with Cassandra because,
Okay.
like, because I think that it's a deeply engrossing idea of a couple. I mean, Tim Drake, yeah, he's a smart kid, but he's pretty normal, and she's anything but. And that kind of opposite attraction thing is just you just want to learn more about, like, what is that like?
Yeah.
What is going on there? And I just think, like, why wouldn't you want to see that? So I don't really like shipping Cassandra off with a lot of characters,
Sure.
but like with Tim, I'm like, yeah, tell me more about this. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so I'm not sold on any couple with Tim yet. I
Interesting.
have read all of the Batgirl run with Cassandra Cain, so I feel like I would more lean towards that than Stephanie, because I've not seen him really with Stephanie very often, because I sporadically read Robin whenever Oracle is in it. So I can't really say like, yeah, my gut, I get the butterflies and those two are together. Like they're cute together, but there are some really impactful scenes that I read in Batgirl with Tim and Cass. I mean, I always bring up with you that Two for Flinching, where she,
Yes.
that's a huge scene. I think they were training together, and he sees the bullet holes, and she explains what that, well, like that was a really intimate scene, and I think anytime that they're together, there's a level of intimacy. I think you mentioned 18. I'm not sure if that was the one or if it was 16 that I did with Brian Q. Miller, where he admits that, I've been scared of you because you're an assassin and all this background, but actually you're a human, and they become friendly. There's that they have to take down an assassin. So that was a
Yeah.
huge scene as well. And he learns a bit more about her too. So if I were to lean towards any of the potential ships that he has, and I know that there have been some good things with the Detective Comics run with Steph and Robin, but potentially I would lean towards towards Cass. The issue, though, that always stops me is when I look at Cassandra, like I was looking, one of the reasons why that image bothered me is like, wow, she's really like sexy, like sexualized. And I'm just
I
not used
know
to that. That's the
bull
one
crap.
thing is that it's hard for me to ship Cassandra. I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know if I'm putting on her like she's asexual. I don't know. I just
Mhm.
don't see her as like this sexual being. It's hard for me to get there, but I do feel like there is something there between the two of them. So I'm totally with you.
No, yeah, I don't think that she's particularly because again, in that image, she's brainwashed. I don't think that
Yep.
she's like,
Yeah, let's say it again so the folks at
yeah,
home understand how terrible the story was.
yeah. No, it was bad. I don't see her as like sexual and someone who kind of like understands their sexuality
Yeah.
and knows when they want to utilize it. But I do think she's a very romantic character, right? Like when she discovered an attraction to Superboy, she just like called up and kissed him. And she kind of yearns, like she often sees Tim and Steph and kind of yearns for that. So I do think that she's somebody who recognizes what romance is and seeks it. At the same time, I think whenever she kind of like is with Tim, there is a sort of unspoken thing that she doesn't recognize, but it's also there. Like my favorite issue of Red Robin was when she saved Tim's virginity.
Oh, I remember that.
That was hilarious. We're like, yeah, he was. I don't know who it was. Some character had like captured Red Robin and unmasked him. Like, you shall together we shall lead this army as husband and wife. And then Black Bat shows up. She's like, I don't think so. And like, there were a lot of fans at the time made a lot of fan art of like Cassandra just locking Tim up in a box, and it was like virginity not for sale or whatever. It was very amusing.
He should wear like in Princess Bride that
Oh
the
yeah, the
belt of
chastity.
chastity or the
Yeah.
chastity belt. Yeah. The there was something I was going to say. You said, it'd be interesting to see what Stephanie would feel about it. I feel like Cass is the type, and I don't know what her relationship is like in this current era, but definitely back where we're talking pre-New 52. I think she would have a conversation before she would ever dive into anything with Tim. She'd be like, hey, Steph, because she cares about Steph, or she will, grow to, I feel like they're BFFs. So that'd be an
Yes.
interesting conversation. But yeah, so I'm on board potentially. Like I said, yeah, I just don't have any horse in the race, I think, for him, which is interesting.
No, I think it's interesting too because obviously like Dick Grayson is like the big romantic back character.
Yeah.
I find because Tim Drake has a lot of female fans that like most I'm not gonna say most, I don't know, but like I've seen a lot of female fans just want Tim themselves. And I'm not saying like all women just want. I'm not trying to lay aspersions, but like oftentimes when it's not just Tim and Stephanie, it's like Tim is like that kind of ideal character that like it's like kind of like a Twilight thing, I guess, where like oh screw Bella, I want Edward kind of thing.
Sure. Well, you asked me in a text chat because one of my stories was the Nicola Scott. She was selling her prints, and one of them was the sexy scene with Dick Grayson. And you asked me if I thought he was the sexiest superhero character. Or male character, I guess, and I said I think so. But it's hard because I feel like just with the media, that's really all I think about. Because there are other like Peter Parker, I find sexy. Danny Rand, I also do, but probably yeah. By what is it? By far and large,
By and
far and
large,
large, whatever. Yeah, probably Dick Grayson, but I'm also like brainwashed because of all the things that come out about him.
Nicola Scott.
Yeah. Well, hey man, I follow her on Instagram now and just go ooh la la the entire time she posts anything. Here's a question for you. I was asked this by Rob, our friend over at Everybody Loves a Drake,
Yes.
when I was on. I guested to talk about my favorite Robin, Damien, which I know we disagree on. But he in Batman Arkham Knight,
Mhm.
the video game, the third video game that they did with Batman, Tim and Barbara end up getting together. I can't remember if they get married or not. Could you in any universe foresee that happening?
No, are you kidding? Absolutely not. Those horse crap. Like just for the pure fact that like at some point they're really on Q and A. We tried. We came up down like what, it's fine.
Way.
It doesn't matter. That's what I call it. But
Yeah,
like
I know. I call it questions. Don't ask them. They don't have the answers. Yeah, go on.
you make it a longer title. At some point, their age is going to be a factor. And
Yeah.
this woman is like 25 years older than Tim or something like that. I don't know.
I
Maybe not
think
that
she
old.
may have been brought down in age and he up, so they were meeting in the middle. But I take your point.
Well, my point is that like, why? When would that have happened? Like, when would they have chemistry enough where like she see what does she see in Tim that she would not see in Dick Grayson
I don't
or
know if
Jason
Dick
Todd?
Grayson was a part of. I've not played the game, but it's a different universe. So you'd have to think without Dick Grayson and a younger Barbara and an older Tim, do you think they could get together?
If they were like on the same level,
Yeah.
I've never put thought into that. I just never. Uh, I mean, possibly, but I mean, to me, it's like, oh, do you think Miles Morales would ever get with She-Hulk? It's like, why would I posit that? I mean, there's plenty of other people on their level, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that like it's gross or wrong. I just think that like that requires a lot further explanation than I guarantee we would have gotten. And I didn't play the game either.
Yeah.
But I was to me, I just whenever people do that, they just want to ship Barbara off with somebody. Like it's not so much like this would make any sense. It's like, okay, well, which character is Barbara the love interest to now?
Yeah, I think she was the only female in the game, so I suppose that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, okay, well, I just wondered. I wasn't trying to incense you on purpose. Okay, so now we're on
I'm
to
leaving.
my number 3.
Yes.
This is 3, right? Now, I had trouble between 3 and 4. I'll explain why this ended up winning out on 3. You actually mentioned it by accident. It is Superboy, aka Con-El / Connor Kent, and Wonder Girl, aka Cassandra Sandsmark.
What a hot image.
I know. I have this one and then one of their kissing scenes. So Teen Titans Volume 3 by Jeff Johns, specifically 2005 Infinite Crisis. Again, this is really my hopping on point with reading comics consistently. So that was one of the things that popped. And then this annual plays into the story. So the reason why I became 3 and not 4 is that this was a couple that led me to search long boxes for this one particular issue, even though I wasn't even reading the series at the time. But I had known of these two getting together. I had been reading Infinite Crisis. I knew of the tragic outcomes, of course, and then was just trying to, get more about these characters. Lo and behold, there's a Teen Titans annual #1 where they get together and they consummate their relationship because they don't think they're going to survive Infinite Crisis. I got to find that.
Yeah,
and
they do.
So this is one of those that I went in just with, this one thing in mind. So that's pretty big. But they actually get together pretty early on in Teen Titans. But, they don't, well, he dies in Infinite Crisis. So that's unfortunate. And then this connects with the Ralph and Sue because Cassie is a huge player in the 52 Weekly series. She actually joins a cult, which connects to Ralph because that's one of the things that he sees if they can resurrect. And it was another reason why I bought that series because I wanted Connor to come back. And so I thought, he might come back. There's this cult. They're trying to resurrect him. Maybe it'll work out. I knew all about that kiss that you were talking about because Tim is trying to, because this is one of my New Year's goals, remember, is say because, not cause. Because Tim is trying to remake Connor, bring him back as well. And they both commiserate over that. But that's not about them. But it's interesting because remember, Don, I was reading Young Justice years ago. I don't remember when I started doing that, but I would keep you apprised of where I was, and we talk a lot about that. And so it's interesting reading younger versions where Superboy doesn't give Cassie the time of day. And then in Teen Titans, of course, they get together, which I can bring that image up. Their first kiss, which ends hilariously.
Image is my own.
Oh gosh. Yeah, first kiss on the roof. I think this is issue 5. And then you can see him at the bottom being hauled off there by Wonder Woman, which was a lot of fun. And thrown, she just flings him. But yeah, a big reason it got my butterflies going in my tummy. That's usually what helps me pick shippers and stick with them. So I was engaged with this particular couple. I actually have a really interesting history just with this book, Teen Titans. I've never read it all the way through, but I remember I was sick one day and my mom went to the local comic store and this was like I was in high school, and she just picks up Teen Titans issue number 7. She might have gotten some other things, I think maybe an Ultimate Spider-Man issue, and I really loved it. An out of context issue 7 was probably the best to start with. It was a good jumping on point, but I
Mhm.
just really loved the characters. But seeing these two together, I felt like it was a shipperific couple. And the big thing is that why it's influential is that making me go to a comic store in order to seek out shipping items, evidence of them together and things like that. That was, yeah. So that's one of the reasons why. It won't be the last time you hear that I do that, but this is like the start, the catalyst of it. So one of those, yeah. I don't know. Are they together in this current continuity?
Well,
I heard there's
okay.
flirtation between her and Tim actually when I was doing research. Is that true?
That there might have been something in like the New 52 Teen Titans, but like
Okay.
what? Okay, so like so Brian Michael Bendis, who was clearly a Young Justice fan, brought back the Young Justice team, and I mean pretty much everything. Like right now in DC, everything's continuity again, and
Okay.
all the characters remember it. This version of Connor Kent is in the Superman books. Like Clark is having a hard time remembering him, but like he went to see the Kents and stuff like that, and in the pages of Young Justice. They were kind of like trying to like work their way back into like the relationship, and I don't think that was as resolved, but it was they're definitely coming back together. I will say that like this was one of my honorable mentions.
Was it?
Uh,
Okay.
so can I send you an image?
I'm sorry?
Can I send you an image right now?
Oh, sure. I just shut down my internet though. My crack. Was there another?
Yeah, well, I have the time that she meets him, which is like I believe
Oh,
in the
for
first
Young
page of Young Justice.
Justice.
Yeah, where it is different, where like it's not like when you say that Connor, it was very much kind of like she had a crush, she had an unrequited crush on Connor because Cassie did. Um,
Sure did. Can you show it on your laptop?
yeah. Uh,
My Zoom. I'm afraid my Zoom will crash if I try to open up the internet while I'm on.
sure, no, that's no problem. So I will see if you can see this here. I know there's the light.
Oh yeah. Oh, and her little word balloon is a heart.
Yes.
Yeah,
And he was such a punk when he first came out in
I
Death of Super,
know. Yep.
or Return of Superman that I liked. He's not being so much here, but like he is the kind of guy who's like, oh, the ladies love me kind of guy. So like, it was interesting seeing that develop because I remember when Kiss and Young Justice, and then later on in the page of Teen Titans, and I remember mid 2000s DC so well, and like the lead up to Infinite Crisis and stuff. And I remember when he was living with Mom and Pop Kent, I was confused because Mom and Pop Kent looked so super young. And that's because Smallville was on. So that was an interesting time. And I do remember, like 1 year later, where both Wonder Girl and Robin changed their costumes to be majorly red in honor of Connor, which I was kind of back and forth. I remember really not liking how she was written in 1 year later because I thought that the character was like just really aggressive and angry and stuff, and that felt to me like somebody had kind of gotten a hold of her. Although I guess it was still Jeff Johns, but yeah, no, this was definitely because this is like kind of a legacy thing. This is like a third generation DC superhero teen romance that is cool, and I would like to see them return because if Tim and Stephanie can be brought back in Detective, they should be brought back in full-fledged fashion as well. Although like I'm not sure besides Young Justice where Cassie currently is.
Okay. I'm not sure either. I don't know about the plans for Wonder Woman or anything. But yeah, it's nice just that they have that history, that it's not just Teen Titans, but they were growing up alongside one another in Young Justice.
Yeah, definitely. And I've always liked her original like black wig costume with the goggles. And when she became more confident, she was like, people found out who it was, so whatever. And like kept on changing her costume and stuff like that. That was just good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, are you ready for your number 3?
The question is, are you ready for my number 3?
Who knows? You've already betrayed me once this podcast.
Bring it up.
Here it is. Oh, that's a big one.
Gar Logan and Tara Markov, aka the Changeling, or Beast Boy, and Tara from the pages of the new Teen Titans. Yeah, you know what? The Judas Contract was the first thing I like when I first began working with my first job. I spent my first paycheck on a copy of the new Teen Titans trade paperback. I read about it on TitansTower.com. Shout out to Bill Wilco, and obviously the Teen Titans cartoon was on at the time, and I really love this story. It kind of has a special place in my heart because of that. But I think it's a cool story of there's this new character, and she's a young teenage girl, and Gar likes her, and she has a lot of anger and a lot of issues, but she's gonna be a hero. And she was working for Justice the entire time, and actually she wants to kill everybody. I find Tara to be a very fascinating character, and a very amusing character. For one thing, I love her original look with, like I said this before, but like her kind of like Chip Fields or Kim Fields like mushroom haircut and her prominent buck teeth. Like she's not this glamorous Starfire or this like this beautiful Donna Troy. She looks like a geeky, a awkward, gawky kid that for some reason Gar Logan has a crush on. But it's funny because there's a little bit of ambiguity whether like she returned Beast Boy's affections or not. Of course. Have you read the Judas Contract?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So like when she's like going crazy and attacking everybody, she very vehemently says, "I faked every word of that.
Yeah.
Every drop of romance that you felt was a complete act." She was hooking up with Deathstroke, which is a whole other thing. But like, I mean, it is kind of that thing where like this event had wounded Gar for so long that later on in the 90s, where she seemingly returned and was a good girl, it was kind of like when Gwen Stacy's clone came back and Peter was like going crazy and stuff. But I don't know. It was so much nicer in the Teen Titans cartoon, where she betrays some of the stuff, but like she's made to be a lot more sympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked the Judas Contract direct-to-video movie, and I thought that even then they kind of sanded off the harder edges to her just a little bit. But just first of all, I mean, just the character herself, I like, and I like her kind of getting together with the kind of the prankster character Beast Boy and how insecure he often is. To me, it's a very interesting couple that I don't see a lot of in comics. I mean, she was kind of meant to be a reaction to accusations that the new Teen Titans was ripping off Uncanny X-Men. And people were saying, oh, well, she's clearly their version of Shadowcat. She's their version of Kitty Pryde. And Wolf and Perez were like, nope. And they never redeemed her because she was never going to be redeemed. She was always a kind of a sleeper agent, evil character. And recently, discourse has come around. It was like, she was like a 15-year-old girl or 16. Like she was, her parents were killed when she was a kid. She was separated from her brother. She was taken in by this assassin. How much blame can we really put on Tara Markov? Are we really going to say that this kid was this deranged, insane, evil creature? Because like Tara, Raven says when they're fighting, she's pure evil. But I don't know. There's a lot of return value, I think, with her. I think when you look at like her quote unquote fake romance with Beast Boy, was Beast Boy seeing things that was actually there, or was he just duped? I mean, I just find it very intriguing. And again, I would love to know if there's any other kind of romance in DC or comics history that's like this.
Yeah. No, it certainly is deep. I didn't read it until after way after I had watched the television series, the cartoon that is. And so there, yeah, you totally feel for poor little Gar. But you wonder, were there actual feelings on her side? It seems like yes, like even though she tried to play it off, that she did care for him. And I think she's given a statue, isn't she, at the end?
She's turned into a statue.
Oh, she's turned into a statue. Okay, yeah, that's the difference right there.
Yeah.
But no, it is. I mean, it seems so sweet reading it, and then she turns into this hateful person, and maybe she is completely that. Wasn't she smoking in bed at one point? So it's like, oh wow, these are all the hallmark things of all the hallmarks. Isn't that what it is? All the hallmarks of an evil person. She's smoking in bed, having sex with an older man.
They never explain that.
So this is your toxic relationship that you're talking about?
Yeah, I dare people to argue that for my top two choices, but like,
Yeah. Oh
I
dear.
love that last scene. If you look at the other image where like she's going wild and like
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense like because like obviously like you have the Hive and Deathstroke attacking the Titans and she's like everyone's betrayed me, and she's just so wild and stuff. I mean I don't know. Every time I read them, I'm like what an interesting character. I think.
Yeah.
I mean I'm sure that like people would think that like she's annoying and stuff or whatever, but for a group of superheroes that are ostensibly teenagers trying to help each other and find themselves and helping each other get away from their mentors and stuff. I mean, is she like a failure of the Teen Titans, or is she just somebody that could never help? I mean, I'm talking more about her than like the actual Beast Boy Tara
Yeah.
romance. But like, I mean, to be completely honest, there's more. There's actually less to talk about that. Besides that, I did show you that one kiss, but like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that she's interesting, and I know that Tom on his show has talked about this, but I would like to. I would like to talk about it to him
Yeah.
one on one, just because I know that he was around when this story first came out. He was stunned.
Her brother, and this connects back to Identity Crisis because there is a scene where they talk about all the people that they've lost, people that are close to the heroes, and one point you see her brother in front of her grave. And so I wonder if her brother, mourns what she was before, or maybe this is just a blip and she is somewhat decent, and just, yeah, it's everything that was built upon each other, because you would think that he would be somewhat discerning and know, but maybe not.
I just remember I was reading Batman and the Outsiders, and in Teen Titans at the end of this issue at her funeral, they say she died heroically fighting Deathstroke in the Hive. Like she died a hero, so he doesn't know what happened to her.
Okay.
But in Batman and the Outsiders, he says, "Ever since Batman told me that she was evil, I don't know what to think about myself." I'm like, wait, what? Like,
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Oof. Yeah. An interesting case study. Yeah.
definitely. I hope you don't disagree.
That she's an interesting case study.
Oh yeah, that like oh she shouldn't be on an influential romance list or her.
This is no, I think with these lists, it's how, it's very subjective of, these are the reasons why they were influential to us. So I totally get that. Okay, my number two. Now this is a big one. It changed my life.
Is it Midnight?
You're sick. You're a sick individual. I only have one image, but I was hard pressed to squeeze everything on there, so I thought this is the best I can do. Okay, my number two, which changed my life, no exaggeration, is Kate Kane and Maggie Sawyer.
I thought early on maybe that would be on there, but I forgot about it.
Yeah. So discovered 2011 in the New 52, specifically Batman by J.H. Williams III and Hayden Blackman. And I think you and I can agree, many people can agree, New 52, I think, was overall bad.
Horrible. Yes.
And, for me, and I did a shipper special or shipper spotlights intermittently throughout, but we were, and this is funny coming from a shipper, but we were inundated with sex throughout the first couple issues of several series, and I'm not exaggerating.
Seriously.
Nightwing had sex on a plane with Raya.
Mm-hmm.
Batwoman and Catwoman on the rooftop. I think,
Mm-hmm.
what was it? It was called, like, I don't know, something
It was
on the
called
roof.
Horrible. Batman and that girlfriend is in his office and
Oh, that's right. That was in oh shoot, what was that? Dark Knight, I think, in that story. That's right. And then Red
Something like
Hood and
that.
the Outlaws, there's some
God.
stuff going on in there. So there was so much sex, people, and I'm not
It was really
exaggerating.
bad.
So bad. It was
And it was
it was like,
I'm arguing
yeah.
about this. It's not so
I
much
can't
like,
see your face because it's being blocked by, I think,
well, it's like it's like oh sex is awful. It's just like it was always at the expense of like characters or total non sequitur. I mean that Catwoman scene is crap. I don't care what anybody says.
We do, without the costumes or with the costumes on, it was some subtitle like that. But yeah, it was as if DC had a dry spell the past 50 years and decided to really rack it up. So then we get to Batwoman. And I felt like it was one of the few titles of the ones, all the ones that I mentioned, that it centered this relationship around emotion. And yes, sex did happen. It was a pretty like sexy scene if you remember what it looked like. Of course, the art is beautiful, but it didn't happen until issue 4, and then later on a proposal in issue 17, which I'll talk about because that's one of the travesties of this. So I would say that this honestly changed my life. It made me reevaluate queer relationships, searching for, because I think I primarily shipped heterosexual relationships. And so this was like a huge turning point, like, oh wow, there can be good, really emotional and engaging and ones that get to me queer relationships. Why was I avoiding them? And I think, more specifically, I think lesbian couples and ships. And this was really the turning point. You've asked me sometimes, like, what made you rethink this? This made me, I think, transition to an ally of the queer community, I think, was this, which sounds like, I understand what it sounds like. You got that from a comic, but it really was that impactful for me, just seeing this, like, they're just like everybody else. They can have a beautiful relationship like everybody else. And so I really transitioned. And this was, I was young. I've grown up so much. This is 2011, so I hope people give me a bit of a chance and everything. But this was just so beautiful. This was the scene in issue number 3 where Maggie comes and says, "Why did you stand me up?" And Kate can't tell her that she was out being Batwoman. And then she starts crying because she had just yelled at Firebird, basically told her to drop the hero business. And yeah, they have this nice little emotional moment and end up kissing. And so I thought it was just, yeah, really raw and intimate, and really grew to love this particular couple. One of my favorite couples, I think, in DC Comics. And I love that there was that proposal in 17 where at the same time that Kate proposes, she also reveals her identity. And then, of course, the travesty of it is that DC said that heroes can't really be married and happy and do their duty because they are supposed to be devoted to other people. So that was like a big, oh man, why did this sort of thing happen when other people could potentially get married as well? So, oh man, yeah, I think I would recommend that, if anyone were on the fence about like queer relationships and how it's represented, because I think sometimes they get a bad rap. Well, I mean, I've just read a queer history that, they're just like oversexed and it's crazy and they're not committed to each other and they just hop on. I'm like, nah, that's just like weird stereotypes that you don't understand. Like this is, I think, and Portrait of a Lady on Fire would be these would be the two incarnations that I would say. But yeah, so it really did change my life and changed my outlook on things. Freshly graduated from college, where I didn't really have any of those experiences, didn't really have or know anyone in the queer community. So this was great for me. So that's why comics really, I think, push forward my empathy. And so that's why I feel, when people feel like comics, when you say you read comics and they kind of snub their nose at you, like, you're immature. These are like one of the reasons why I'm like, no, actually, it helped inform me on certain things and I think pushed me to better understanding and empathy and compassion.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that like uh, that's how culture develops. It helps reiterate new norms and new ways to see other people. And I mean, this is the last time I'm going to do this. I promise. I promise. The last time I'm going to do this. But on question of answers, we talk about that all the time. Like you can't just say that like video games or movies or television have no consequences because those mores are repeated and reiterated and believed out in the real world because through things that they receive culturally and through other media. And yeah, no, I remember when around New 52 came out that this was clearly the best written book we were dealt with. I mean, we enjoyed Batman by Scott Snyder, and I think Nightwing was all right. And we enjoyed Batman and Robin a bit, but by and large it was awful. But Batman was one that was clear, like this gets an A every time.
Yeah.
And it just felt that like there was much more emotion coming out of it rather than sensationalism or trying to impress or shock the reader. Like, this isn't your dad's DC comic book thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it does say something where Dan DiDio says we can have, like multiple sex scenes in comic books, including Batwoman, but we can't show gay marriage. And he said, it's not that we're against gay marriage, it's just the idea of a superhero, but it's like, okay, but like these don't exist.
I think it what's that called? A bad
faith argument?
No, like a bad look, but that's not what I'm looking for. But because you said no to this couple and they happened to be a lesbian couple, I felt bad optics. I felt like it turned out poorly. And then they were so big. Sorry. They were so big on the, gosh, who was it? It was the Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and somebody else in that other world's Earth 2. They're like, this is our first Earth. And he dies. He gets killed in the first. And I'm like, okay, so you just did the bury your gays trope and you're so excited. And there were news articles. So they didn't, maybe they're doing better. I have no idea what their queer character population is like right now, but I just feel like they lost something when they didn't do that. And this was compared to Nightwing and Clancy, Maggie knew they went through those issues, because at one point she says, where were you that night before we made love the first time? Unless you're ready to tell me, we can't be together. And then there's the proposal. So they go through like realistic issues. And then if Kate is completely out, no pun intended, being Batwoman, you could make that relationship work, because she said yes, knowing that Kate was Batwoman. So I don't know. That was what a lost thing. And then the writers left basically because of it.
Really?
Good for them. Yeah, remember they dropped because of editorial issues, and then that whole thing happened. I was like, yeah, because they weren't given what they wanted to do.
Gosh, that was 10 years ago now.
Oof, I know.
11.
It's crazy. I just want to say that you are hidden behind like a shelf.
Oh, well, I don't see myself on the thing. I just see two women kissing. So
2 women kissing. Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. 2 women kissing. So there you go. Kate and Maggie, which made me excited when she popped up in Supergirl. Yeah, but then that was...
She was with Atlas, right?
I'm sorry?
Maggie Sawyer was with Alex, right?
Yeah, yep. And then she left because they had an issue about children. Okay, now it is your number 2. I almost clicked on your number 1 by accident. Number 2 for you. Did this one change your life?
Yes.
Okay.
What life?
Oh, I think I recognize her.
Yes, this is Tim Drake and Ariana Zurchenko.
Ooh!
This is one of my favorite romances, but it's also influential. This is, if we're not counting Spider-Man, this is definitely like the first like comic book romance. This is the image from Robin #1, where she was introduced. Ariana was introduced in like Robin 3, which is like his 3rd miniseries before he got his ongoing series, in which she was like under plight from the KGB, and rescued by Robin. So you don't really see her and Tim get together, but like by the time the series starts, they're dating. And Tim Drake Robin series is very Spider-Man-like, where like he has a lot of problems with double identity and maintaining a normal life. And again, it was kind of I'm a kid reading this, and like when you see in this issue, Batman gave him the Redbird, right? He had a super hot, souped up mega car, and the next scene is like, I gotta go pick up my girlfriend. We gotta ride the bus. Like he feels really insecure about it, and there's a line in the next panel that I don't include that like I related to in a previous relationship, where he says, I feel human when I'm with her. Being with her makes me forget about Jean-Paul Valley and Bane and everything that's going on in Gotham. I don't think about any of that stuff when I'm with her. It's a darn shame that didn't last, because they're together for over 50, 55 issues, but it's very tumultuous because he's Robin. And whereas Dick Grayson is an adult and kind of understands, I better end things with Clancy before they get too far. And also there's just Barbara, and I'm always running off. Like he I would not say that Dick is wholly irresponsible with Richard Clancy. He is a little bit, but like with Tim, it's not so much that Tim's irresponsible. It's just that Tim, it's almost like he's overwhelmed with everything that he couldn't possibly have made this work. During Nightfall, he's running around chasing Jean Paul. He's trying to, he's stayed up all night. He's not getting enough sleep. So Ariana like goes out with another guy, and she feels bad about it and tells him, I went out with Glenn Doppler. I'm so sorry. I was just so mad. Will you ever forgive me? And like Tim's like falling asleep because he was chasing Azrael the whole time. So she's mad at him for that. When a classmate of theirs is killed in gun violence at the funeral, they're very sad about it. And then Stephanie Brown was there to investigate. And so Tim was like, oh, crap, what's she doing here? And then Stephanie's like, why are you looking at that blonde girl? And why do you look so strange? And he's like, oh, can we go? And so she's so soft. First of all, she hits him. And then, like issues later, she dyes her hair blonde because clearly that's what he's into. Which catches the attention of other classmates, and there's an attempted assault after that, and so she's traumatized by that. But she feels, okay, well, this is what all the cool kids are doing. She invites Tim over to her house, puts on this sexy nightie when her aunt and uncle aren't there, and says, let's have some sex. And he's like, as I told Lady Shiva, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, he did.
Which is this actually makes her feel safer with him, that he didn't pressure her to anything. So they start to kiss right when her aunt and uncle show up from church. So her uncle literally chases him out. And Tim has to actually use his Robin acrobatics to escape him, and like he's literally chased out of the house. So his relationship with Ariana, she's moving to a boarding school. They're threatening to move her away, and it's a really bad scene. And Tim's only solace is hanging out as Robin with the spoiler. So it's really unfortunate that like it's one of those things where if he was not Robin, I can't imagine why they would not go the distance in this relationship. But like throughout several years of the first several years of this title, I really liked the relationship. I was really rooting for her. And in the letters pages, it was very much a Gwen and MJ, Tiff and Eric kind of thing, where it's like you're either on Team Ariana or with Team Stephanie. Because right away, Stephanie had kind of gotten over her annoyance at Robin and started having a crush on him. So like it was very much like, do you want to have Robin have a girlfriend or Tim to have a girlfriend? And so I think that Ariana was always a really nice character. Like she was not dumb, but she was always trying to be understanding. But there were times where Tim was just missing for several days, and his excuses always sucked. And so she's like 14, so she's very insecure about that. And it was an example of, like in Spider-Man, most of his romances are like in college, right? So there's very little that he has to report to, except for his absences and stuff. Whereas Tim's like, oh, I was with my dad. Oh, but your dad's in the hospital. Oh, I was visiting my dad. But the hospital's all over there. It's like all this kind of stuff that he was never smart enough to figure out. Like he can figure out a crime, but he can't really figure out how to lie convincingly. And he tells Dick this, and he tells Barbara this sometimes, and he tells Batman this, and Batman's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it was an example of a very young romance that was just always on the downward path, and just I don't know, I found it very it was influential to me because that was like the main DC romance for years that I was used to. Like when I got into comics, Spider-Man had already been married and stuff. Like Superman and Lois had been married, but this is when they break up. It was just one of those things where it was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. Now I kind of feel that Dixon kind of cheats the audience a bit, because when Tim realizes that he needs to break up with her and he's struggling to do it, she's like, "Hey, let's break up," and it kind of makes it easy on Tim. But like ultimately, it was kind of like a very young like teen romance that was just it should have been a source of peace and relaxation for Tim, but it just never was.
I remember a lot of the things that you're talking about, reading through them. So yeah, do you foresee, if we saw Tim years in the future and he met Ariana, would they just have dinner and chat like old friends, or do you think that there would be a potential for a more serious relationship?
There is one issue a few issues down the line after Stephanie says that she's pregnant, where he does run into Ariana at her restaurant, the restaurant that she works at with her aunt, and they catch up and they're cordial. and she's cool with it. Like she kind of understood that it was kind of this teen romance, but he's never sure how to feel about it, and he feels kind of guilty and weird. But that was kind of the last time we saw her. Now that Tim's much older and he's kind of more focused on being Robin. I don't know how you deal with it.
Gotcha. So is it similar to Dick and Clancy in that other identity really prevents this from becoming a longer relationship?
I think it's similar, but I think Tim and Ariana are a more extreme example.
Okay.
Where Nightwing was like, oh, maybe I can kind of strike up something with Clancy. Oh, it never ended up working out to where they started actually officially dating. I mean, Tim and Ariana were boyfriend and girlfriend for years. This wasn't just like a run. This was like from issue 1 to issue 50 something. And he gone through Nightfall and Contagion and Legacy and all that kind of stuff. So like he was going through so much and trying to maintain this relationship. And she never found out he was Robin. She never like had any clue or had any guesses at all. It wasn't a case of like, I can't let her know my secret identity. It was like, I'm just trying to keep this thing up. And I find it relatable just as on a human level. Relationships can be very difficult and you have to put an effort in them and you can't just hope it works out because whether you are a crime fighter or not. And I don't know, more than anything else, like this was the number one romance that I was familiar with when I was like, this is like well before podcasts, well before like Justice League and things like that, like where like a lot of this stuff was kind of like young in the 90s and I was kind of reading and kind of getting to know comic book storytelling. Like this was the relationship that I was the most familiar with. Mm-hmm. And it's all, even though she's a forgotten character, I've never forgotten her. So whenever like they say, oh, continuity's back in continuity, you guys, Ariana is back in continuity, I'm like, cool, hooray, I win. So you shake your head.
I win. Yeah. No, it's when you talk about this, it's interesting to think about Tim, a 16-year-old. I don't know, here 15, 16, and just all the stuff that he has to deal with, and just the fact that he's able to juggle it. And of course, I think some of the balls are going to fall, and he's not able to complete it. But oof, yeah. No, I didn't feel when I was reading her, I thought, well, it's fine. But I think I did sort of lean towards him having a girlfriend or significant other as Robin rather than as Tim. With that, you've got your inherent issues. I always think of Black Cat and Spider-Man. Like there's obviously an issue if you can't remove your masks and everything. And ever since, Young Justice, I know how secretive he is. I guess not really secretive, but protective of his identity he is. I remember there was a campfire scene. Do you remember that scene where everyone like takes off their guises and he's like, no, just keep mine. Like that's just who he is. So it'd be hard to imagine him sitting down with her and saying, I'm Robin, or the other people. So
well, I mean, he never confessed to Stephanie that he was Tim Drake. That was going for him, and he felt some type of way about that. But
I remember that. Oof. That's a betrayal, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I think I said it first.
Oh boy. Well, anything else on your number 2? We're about to get into the big one.
No, I'll expend any oxygen I can to share people the word of Ariana, but like
okay.
I'm out of breath, so it's your turn.
Okay. So I feel like the only controversial one you potentially had was what, Tara and Gar?
Yeah, no, I wasn't out to break anybody's hearts. Clearly you are.
No, but I am. My number 1.
This is not even Tarantula, seriously.
No, it's Baby Doll and Killer Croc. My number 1, it should be a surprise to no one at all, frankly.
I have an image right now on my screen. So yes.
I even have the statue all set up. It's going to be Dick and Babs. Dick and Babs is my number 1. It possibly, spoiler for future DC comic lists that we have, it possibly could be number 1 for like all of the DC comic ones. Oh, do you have something? Is this one of your honorable mentions? I can't. Yeah. It's not closing in on. Can you get it closer so that the glare or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I can do. I can turn the light off, and there'll be less glare.
So, oof. I was trying to retrace because this one I think has the most complicated history. Wow, look at this guy. He
God,
goes
yeah.
to the gym, people. He goes to the gym to get those gains, as they say. What
Yeah,
is
and you berate me
happening?
like, show me the game.
Hey, is it so hard or is it so terrible to ask to see a man's legs? No, I don't think so.
So I can't
Okay,
see
he's
on
showing
my screen.
us any. Oh,
I
oh,
can't see it
it's
on my
kind
screen.
of getting closer. I don't know. It's just like I only see the brightness. I don't know what happened with the other one. Oh
Turn
man,
down the
which one
relay.
is it? Oh, yeah, that
You see
might
it better
work.
now?
Yes, it looks like Dick and Babs. I just
Yeah.
can't tell where it's which one it's from. It's getting
Oh, it's
closer. Oh, oh! I see it. Is he on a workout bench and she's straddling him?
yeah.
Oh man, there they are. Is that's not from a comic, is it?
No, that's Babs Tar.
Okay.
You've
Whew.
seen this before, right?
Maybe, probably if it's Bad Star, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this is my number one. It changed my life. Partially one of the reasons why I started this podcast. But discovered in 2005. So I tried to work through all of this. And summer 2005, which is when I graduated high school, I had surgery on one of my feet and I was laid up and I was looking for books and media to consume. And I remember getting Batgirl Year One, which changed my life, and Justice League, the animated series on DVD, maybe season one and two, but definitely season one.
Mm-hmm.
And so both of these led, in different ways, but also together as kind of a fork and parallel. But both of these ended up leading to fan fiction for the first time in my life, archive of our own. And from there, because I think I was focusing a lot on Green Lantern and Hawkgirl fan fiction. And then because of Barbara, I was like looking for all of this because there's kind of a shipper moment in Batgirl Year One. So I was looking for this. I was consuming some Dick and Babs fanfic for sure. And then similar to, and Don has read one of the stories I have read as well, where they're as Batgirl and Robin doing the dirty and Batman walks in on them. I tried to find that. I actually searched for like a good time. I was like, I don't think I'm going to find
No,
this.
he's standing over and watching me.
It's, I mean, I may have looked for R-rated and mature fan fiction.
I like how you like. Maybe not. We don't. I know.
Yeah, I may have, or the NC-17. They were some. I think they were like
Awesome.
NC-17 before, but now they're mature. But anyways, from there, connection to Superboy and Cassandra or Wonder Girl, I compiled a list of appearances where they were both in the same issue and there were romances. And I went like a little nerd with this piece of paper with these things and went out searching. Most of these were Nightwing issues, and I'm
Yeah.
totally reading them out of context, like the No Man's Land stuff. I had never read No Man's Land before. So I'm just picking up these random issues. What was that, 45, 46, 47, something like that? And it also led me to spend the most money that I have for a comic, which was Birds of Prey number 8, which is where this image came from. I could have used so many images from this, but this is when they're on the top of the trapeze, and maybe the kiss, maybe they don't, I don't know. But number 8 was hard to find. But oof, man, so all of this is huge journey, and it's just gotten worse over the years, or better, who knows. It's
It got
cemented
worse.
this as my, well, just like the obsession. I mean, I got, this, which actually I have 2 of them, and I bought neither of them, but it cemented this as my one true pair, the one that I will die on that hill for. I will devour any media with them, as long as they're a couple, of course. But okay, so yeah, it changed my life. I think it really brought Babs into focus a little bit because she's a bit ornery sometimes as Oracle, but seeing her paired up with Dick, like he's very much, I think, the bright spot in her life. Batgirl in general is, I think, the bright spot in the Batman universe. But when she gets down on herself, it's always he that is the one who brings her up, and I think pushes her against some of the things. I mean, Joker Last Laugh was interesting on how it ended, but when she's having all these really violent thoughts and wishing Joker dead, he's the one that's speaking reason to her. I feel like they're so compatible. Yes, there might be an age difference depending on the era. It could be large or small, but the banter, it's been so fun to be reading Nightwing and Birds of Prey from the beginning and seeing how their banter has developed and just having fun with those little moments and flirtations, whether they're together or not, and the trust and pushing each other, their boundaries emotionally, physically. I just feel like, for me, they're the perfect couple, and they have their issues, so I also think they're a realistic couple. I think that they have realistic arguments and fights, and it annoys me when DC Comics kind of goes back and forth on it. I wish they would just pick something. Now, I have heard rumors, don't spoil anything, but I have heard rumors. But what was that one issue in Batgirl where remember they spend the honeymoon night that Batman and Catwoman were supposed to have, and they don't end up doing anything. Do you remember that? They don't end up doing anything, but they have like a really great conversation and just hang out with each other. And so I think that is very much who they are as well. So I just feel like they know each other intimately. And if I mean, honestly, I know I'm totally biased, but I just feel like Dick is a person who could potentially put down the cowl, put it aside. And I think that Barbara could be that person and should be that person that he grows old with, and that they end up together. I feel like, I am biased, but if I look around all the people that he's had relationships with, I know Coriander and things like that. This seems like the most realistic end game relationship for him to have like a happy ending. So, whoo, I could go on and on, but this is, I mean, my favorite couple, period, but most influential on me just with me wanting to learn more about both those characters, especially Babs, going out and being a nerd and just finding these random numbered comics that I have in my long box that have no subsequent numbers before or after, and fan fiction, like all of that changed, and getting into battles with Tom Panarese about with whom Dick belongs. Oh, yeah. So Dick and Babs.
I kind of feel like I halfway didn't put him on the list just because you obviously were. And
did you know? Oh, I know what her number one is.
Well, if they weren't on the list at all, this whole thing would have been pointless. But one of my favorite, I love when we went to BJC, but one of my favorite things that happened was when Nancy Northcott did her presentation on the history of the Dick and Barbara relationship, which is cool. And you and Carolyn Cooper were just like wrapped in attention, and she was like, and that concludes my presentation at the end. And I very like snarkily like, well, what about Starfire? And you guys just like snapped towards me like, no.
Like you need to shut up. Yeah, I know. Read the room, man. So read the room.
Oh, I love that. I don't know. This image I found, because I found some images when I was making the previous list. And I don't know, I think this is from Nightwing, if you can see this. Like a recent issue of Nightwing.
Oh, okay.
I'll read the dialogue where he's like, how can I adequately thank you? I mean, besides getting a Batgirl tattoo on my lower back and rubbing your feet for the next 50 years, I'm in favor of both those options, but maybe add 2 to the list. And I'm just thinking like, wow.
A far cry from Batgirl number 49, 50. Whatever. Was it 50?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, you're starting on the ground or whatever.
I know. But I don't trust you. We're not friends.
Yeah. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's people who suffered from gun violence. Me, Barbara Gordon. That's really, honestly, that really is my biggest thing, is that like they are mucked with so much by DC, because and this is I think I can explain why, as if you don't already know, because honestly, back in the day when he was Robin, they weren't really shipped together that much. I mean, there was flirtation. There was that infamous kiss during like the Napoleon issue. Yeah. And there was that marriage issue. So there was ideas of it because they were young crime fighters. But by and large, she had her own love interest, and he had his own, and he had like Laurie Elgin and stuff. But it wasn't really an idea that DC pushed. And it wasn't until Chuck Dixon and the movie Sub-Zero where not only did the idea of Dick and Babs getting together start to ferment, but fans glommed onto it. But the writers at the time had grown up with another understanding of, I think, of Barbara Gordon more than anything else. And so you have people now who are like, Dick and Babs, no, they're not getting together. But it's too late. It's far too late because there's been so much fan goodwill that that's seen as an ideal romantic pairing. And I like them together. It's been so acrimonious in the last 10 years that it's just been bothering me the whole time. Like there was that whole thing in the DC metal thing where it eventually ended well, but he's like, Barbara, this is the last day we're going to live. I must propose to you. And she's like, not now, Nightwing. I got to fight crime. And it's just like, would you knock it off? Like, how many times have they written stories where Barbara is mad at Dick? And I'm not even coming at this from like a male apologist or whatever, but it feels contrived often. Like the Nightwing Annual 2 thing, which you've not gone into yet, that was contrived.
Oh, I know all about that. That was one I sought out after too.
Yeah, like there's the issue of Nightwing later on, where I'll say it right now, like Dick and Babs are on a date in a restaurant, or Barbara in her civilian identity is attacked by Tarantula, and that precipitates them, Dick and Babs having a row. That's much more like character driven and logical, and that actually carries over into Batgirl because like Cassandra walks in on Barbara crying because of that, and she's mad at Dick because of that. Like that stuff I like, where it's character based rather than like agenda based. But I mean, I've always liked the idea of like, first of all, Batgirl being older than Robin to me is just interesting because you would think it was because the animated series has a kind of opposite, but also like them kind of having different upbringings and Dick going off with the Titans. And Barbara having her own stuff and going to Congress and then becoming Oracle and then finding each other in adulthood. I like that. I like that quite a bit because that strikes me as realistic, and that strikes me as compelling because it's not just a straight linear thing. And I think that like it's like if they were to get together and just be together permanently, like Clark and Lois or Oliver and Dinah, no one's going to complain about that. So yeah, no, they are a favorite couple of mine. I just didn't want to talk about it more than you have.
Sure, yeah. And I agree that they've not been written well. It's back and forth. He'll drop in and out of her life. And yeah, I just wish there were consistency. I mean, he even popped in, as much as I love it, the Burnside run when she was kind of dating Luke Fox. Remember the wedding issue for
Yeah, that was funny.
Alicia, and I can't remember her girlfriend's name. Now wife, I suppose. So they can marry minor lesbian characters off, but main lesbian characters. But yeah, he pops in and there's like that whole issue. So it seems like whenever they come together, they've got to talk about their relationship issues, but nothing ever happens.
Right.
So it's more like, can you show but not tell? So we'll see what happens with her and his title coming up after all this break. But yeah, I just focus on the previous era, where I am now with this show in the 2000s, and then some little hints. I mean, it was nice in Batman Family where they were teaming up a great deal. It was fun because I felt like without Batman being there, Robin treated her as an equal, so that gender issue I think didn't even play an issue, and they were just partners, which was great. There is that one scene where he confesses that he has a crush on her, but she's sleeping on the couch, but she's actually pretending to sleep. So there is, some history there. But yeah, my OTP.
Yeah, I think once he got in college, he kind of like dropped the whole chauvinist thing.
Yeah. Maybe
so. Yeah, no. Yes. If I had it my way, you do kind of just like stick together, and they would have their issues, they'd have their problems, but like it wouldn't be this sort of like will they, won't they thing, because everyone knows that they will. Like Gail Simone married them off of Convergence.
Yes. So like, one of the actual good
yeah.
ones. There's another event that didn't go well.
But if it were to me, before that would happen, she and Starfire would have to have a fight to the death.
Oh, interesting. Does Babs have the use of her legs or no?
I want it to be interesting, so no. She has to fight a superpowered alien.
Okay.
She can't rely on her famous butterfly kicks.
Whoever wins, Dick Grayson loses. Dun dun dun. Oh boy. Okay, well, it's time. Oh, I guess you want to go through your runners up.
Oh yeah, so Dick and Baz were on my honorable mentions. Right above that was Dick and Starfire.
The second betrayal of the night, the second knife that goes into me.
Because reading Teen Titans, I really do like their relationship historically. I think it's, and I really like it in the animated movies. I think it's well rendered there. I had Superboy and Wonder Girl, Green Arrow and Black Canary. I really like them. They've certainly had their problems. Oh, I don't know, Ollie cheating on her like more than once, and him also dying. So like it's not the healthiest of relationships, but I do think it is kind of like an OTP. Like I don't think that Oliver would ever question his feelings for her at all, whereas Dinah has plenty of reasons to question her feelings for Oliver. And Batman and Talia.
Okay.
You know, I'm down for Batman and Catwoman, but like I feel that Tom King has ruined that relationship for me. We're just shoving it down our throats every issue with like it was a boat, it was the alley, it was a street, it was a boat, and just like the Bat Cat thing, like it completely just like took me out of it. I'm like, I don't care about this anymore. Whereas Talia is a bit more compelling because obviously she is the daughter of someone who's evil, and she's not so great herself, but there is a genuine, like I think, energetic, almost spiritual connection that she has with Batman. It's like they kind of found each other in various circumstances, and they're too weak to deny that. And yeah, there's Damian as well. That kind of complicates things. But I always remember that scene from Batman Inc. where Batman figured out that Talia was behind everything, and he just like gets her on the phone, and he's like, and he's very like, and he's in the mask. He's like, you know, listen to me, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. Like he's talking to her like they're like really mournful lovers, and she's like, sorry beloved, it's too late, and she's looking all like girl boss and stuff. But like I really like him being so vulnerable when talking to her, and because you don't often see that level of their relationship that way. So I'm not, and also, you know, she like knocked him out and then like got married to him when he was unconscious. That was funny. So yeah, they're an honorable mention.
I consider Black Canary and Green Arrow, but I feel like I like them more because of the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. And I think my love of them is informed more from that than comics. So that's why I didn't put them on my list. But they were certainly a contender that I was considering.
Oh yeah, no, I've read. Like I said, I mentioned I've read the O'Neil Adams Green Arrow Green Lantern run where Green Arrow like fights a guy in an alley and he had an injured shoulder, so he accidentally hits someone in his arrow and kills him. So he like quits and like goes off to a monastery, and he comes back into Star City when he hears that like Dinah got hit by a car and needs a blood transfusion, and like his whole life of peace, he completely threw that away to get back to Dinah. It's like, and I was like, nice. I thought it was cool.
Well, it's a good thing he quit, or else Batman would have fired him for that.
I'm sure he's too busy firing somebody else.
Thank you for agreeing with me. Okay. Oh man, one of my favorite games I subjected you to. Okay, Donovan, are you ready for your number one?
I'm not. Yes.
I've forgotten what it was.
Do it now.
Let's see. Oh, well.
Can you read the dialogue?
Maybe if I zoom in.
Go for it.
Oof. Oh. Are we going back and forth reading the dialogue?
Yes, I'll be 10 when you do Stephanie. Who's my number one?
Okay. It didn't make sense.
And running around rooftops in a mask and cape does.
Do you have your own room in your glass house, Robin?
It's different with Batman and me.
Sure it is. Wish I could figure out what to do with my hair under this thing. Oh, there's only two reasons you might be here. You don't know who killed Carl Rank.
And the other reason, Stephanie?
I used to hate it when you said my name.
Oh, I'll meet you here at midnight tomorrow, okay?
It's a date.
It's not a date, Steph. And that's my number one.
Look, she looks creepy here. She looks like the Joker. Man.
Oh boy, that is the issue with she there at the funeral, and like the very next page, like Ariana's like yelling at him. It's not a date, Tim. Like again, like interesting. The basic superhero romance. I think Spider-Man kind of like cornered the market where like if they're not already together, like in the Fantastic Four, it's like there's this really hot woman who instantly likes me, but I'm a superhero, so I can't get with them. Whereas with here, in the page of Detective Comics, like an old Silver Age villain and the Clue Master showed up, so Batman and Robin were on the trail, and they ran into this costumed crime fighter who belted Robin in the face with a brick. And it was the spoiler, Stephanie Brown, the daughter of the Clue Master. And so they're kind of at odds at first because she wants to basically kill her father, and she doesn't. But when she runs into Robin, she has a thrill of crime fighting, and she thinks that Robin's kind of cute. And so I'm not going to say that she's the reason why he breaks up with Ariana, but she's a big factor into how he kind of kept his sanity. As you noted on your own podcast, he kind of decides to get together with Stephanie before he breaks up with Ariana, and that is a little sleazy. I'm not going to not deny that, but they go on a date in issue. I actually have the image here. In Robin issue 57, they go on this superhero date where they go to like the movies and such. They fight crime, and Robin says, "I feel bad because I know who you are, but you only know me as Robin." She says, "That's fine with me." And he's like, "Really?" And then they make out, and he's like, "Yes, boo, oh boy, I think everything's gonna finally go my way." And then the next night he finds out that she's pregnant. Oops. And he helps her through that whole time. And yeah, they remain together for again a long time until oh gosh, they break up when I think it's a little before Tim quits being Robin because his dad finds out, and then she's made Robin, and then after that there's a whole War Games thing and her supposed death. So their relationship kind of had a turbulence afterwards near the end of his title. But when James Tynion brought back the real Tim Drake, basically, in Detective Comics, he also resurrected Tim and Stephanie's relationship. And so when Tim is presumed to be dead, she's furious at Batman. She kind of wages war on Batman. When Tim shows back up again, she rejoins the Bat family. And as you can see here, they literally drive off into the sunset. And they're not seen again until Brian Bendis' Young Justice, in which the first issue, Stephanie was like, yeah, I was Robin. I remember being Robin. I was a better Robin than you. And this is one of those things where, like, over many years, I kind of saw it kind of came from, like, they were, like, not rivals, but, teenage crime fighters kind of helping each other out. She was very much an amateur. Like, she didn't have a lot of equipment and stuff, to her getting in with the Bat family, to her dating Robin, but not Tim Drake, to her getting told who Robin is in all that situation. But, like, I mean, it's one of those long-term, long-running relationships that's not Wonder Woman or Steve Trevor. That's not Batman and Catwoman. It's a very human, very believable relationship where it starts off, they are young superheroes, but they're also teenagers, and that kind of like carries the relationship more than them being Robin and spoiler. And yeah, and again, like, it's just, I don't know if this is my favorite romance ever, but I would say this is probably the most influential romance. Like, literally, this probably has the biggest one in my reading history.
Yeah, it's it's hard to have that one-sided relationship. So I think I more so enjoyed seeing them in the pages of Detective, because I was still reading it when Tynion was at the helm, and seeing all of that, and seeing them back together. I felt like, I feel nostalgic butterflies. But it's a better relationship. I felt like we got in Rebirth, I guess, was it technically? I don't know if that was the title, but in this current era, compared to the previous one where she was only dating Robin. But still, yeah, there is something sweet and cute about the two of them. I like Stephanie more as Batgirl. I think she grew a great deal her
Yeah.
character as Batgirl. So sometimes as spoiler, she gets a bit on my nerves. I think it's gotten better, but just in the beginning, I'm like, ooh, it's kind of, you're a bit annoying, ma'am. But it is a cute relationship. Like I said, I think I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight or a horse in the race for this young gentleman, but clearly, gosh, this is your Dick Grayson for you, because you ship him with 3 different women, perhaps
I
more.
noticed
Lady
that.
Shiva, Tiffany
Now,
Fox. Didn't he have something with Tiffany Fox and Red Robin?
Yeah, no,
Was that her
I forget.
name?
Yeah, Lucius'
Man,
daughter.
who else are we throwing at him? I don't know. Tarantula Jr.? Who knows?
What? No, Wonder Girl.
No, but it's interesting. Do you feel like each of these women that you've shipped him with bring out something distinct and different from the others? Like Stephanie brings out something that Ariana and Cassandra don't, and then for the others as well?
I
Or do
think
you
it's
think
true with
he's
Stephanie. I think
okay?
as opposed to Ariana, definitely, and definitely opposed to Cassandra, he can relax with Stephanie. Um, he was when he was kind of putting on a front, like in the dialogue that we read, he was being Robin, right? He was being Robin, the boy wonder, the boy detective. That was Tim Drake. That was Tim Drake, not being who he was, but he was like not. He was being very guarded, and Stephanie helped him kind of come out of that. Whereas with everybody else, he couldn't really relax no matter who he was. I think. I mean, I say that's Cassandra. He's not referencing Cassandra, but like the reason why he's with Stephanie is because he just feels at ease, and I think that that's ideal in a relationship. You should feel completely. Um, uh, you shouldn't feel as though you have to think about anything other than being yourself and being with somebody who enjoys you being yourself. And I think that's why they make a really good couple. I've never questioned them together. And a lot of people, I think the readers really majorly preferred Stephanie over Ariana, and were hoping they would get together. And I think that I think Dixon kind of played it out pretty well to its natural extent.
Yeah. Well, she's certainly the girl next door, I would say. Well, I guess I could be Ariana too. I don't know. But she's like the
Russian
lovable
Nestor.
ditz, the lovable ditz.
Well, it's interesting
If
that you said that because you know her mostly through Batgirl, she and Tim weren't together, and there was some antagonism because they had gone through so much.
yeah.
So that's interesting that like your perspective is like from that angle. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying like that window peered through that part of the relationship then.
Yeah. Well, and I just feel like, well, once I guess they got over their antagonism, what would that relationship look like? But I feel like what I've been reading so far in Robin in the 2000s, she is rather immature compared to Batgirl. I mean, I think she's still immature in Batgirl, but you see her really growing and I think maturing and becoming I don't know, a
Better.
strong, independent young woman. So it would be
Oh yeah.
interesting to see what that relationship would be like. I guess it would be her and Red Robin at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. She was definitely like she was. I mean, she was green. There was never a case of like it wasn't like Barbara Gordon where she could do it, but it was kind of just denying opportunities. I mean, she was an amateur in every sense of the word. I mean, she had a good spirit, but she was also very lucky.
Yeah.
And so most of her spoiler career was basically Batman telling her stop and go home.
Yeah.
And part of the reason he said that he made her Robin was so she could cut out the spoiler crap and actually be trained. So yeah, no, she could be annoying, but like it's that kind of like oh, she's needling him rather than I don't know, misfit or whatever. I'm so
Yeah.
mad about that.
She's somewhat similar to Bet, or I guess she was Betty in her
Oh yeah.
inception, just that she dotes on Robin. She wants to be about, that's really all she cares about kind of thing. Maybe she wasn't that one dimensional, but just certain aspects of that I kind of see with Stephanie, the early Stephanie. So,
I kind of find early Bet Kane to be shallow because it was like she's there for if it wasn't for Robin, it was like to hang out with my aunt that I'm traveling by train to see, and it's like okay, whatever. But yeah,
traveling by train to see. Oh man. Well, I'm somewhat shocked that Tim has appeared thrice on your list.
I'm so ashamed.
I guess no, you shouldn't be. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's your favorite character. I guess I could have done a Babs list. I could have done Babs and Jason, and then Babs and Jason, and then Babs and Dick, and then Babs and Luke, and then
You could have
Babs
ranked the
and
Barbara romances.
what'd you say?
You could have ranked the Barbara romances.
Great Scott! You know who'd be at the bottom?
Babs and Jason. Oh, Babs and Bruce.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And then Babs and that guy that I always use an Anakin clip because I hate him so much.
Oh, was it Kai?
Oh man. And then there's the penguin. There was that flirtation with Ethan Cobblepot.
Yeah, that was never going to happen.
And then, oh, you know who was a good one though? The cop officer. Shoot, what was his name? Was
Oh
it
yeah,
Tom?
the Burnside run.
No, not
He,
the Burnside. The Brian Q. Miller run. The officer, the
oh
policeman,
gosh, yeah.
Nick, the policeman.
Oh yeah, it reminded me of
Oh,
Shamar Moore from the Birds of Prey show.
Shamar Moore. Yeah. Oh man, these are all coming back to me. The terrible ones and the somewhat decent ones.
You should totally do that. I mean, that'll
Oof.
be a suggestion. Maybe not for like a super spotlight, but
Yeah.
just rank the romances.
Yes. Well, I think we're probably set that next year we're gonna do video game couples. Do you think you can pick 5? You think you'll make it? Oh no, you need to no. Don't. Oh man, why does Barrett sing his own theme song? That's what I want to know.
Well, that's actually the traditional Final Fantasy. It is like for all the Final Fantasy like games. That's the victory theme that he does.
Oh, okay. Dun, dun. Yeah, but you're like wandering around and I'm breaking open Shinra boxes and he's like dun 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 dun. I'm like, okay, Barrett, nothing's happening.
Because he rules.
Oh boy. Well, folks, we are at the end of this controversial, cancel-worthy shipper special. I don't think so. I'd be interested. I can't wait to see what people. Yeah, please write in whether you have any opinions on our couples or you feel like we made a mistake. But I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say on some of these. Or what are your top 5 influential couples and they're influential on your personal history or your comic reading history?
I think the most controversial. There could be people who would like say you guys are totally wrong about Identity Crisis, but cool. That's valid.
Yeah. Who knows? Well, I did not pull the Nightwing Tarantula card, so we're all safe from there.
And you could have.
I could have, yeah. He's mentioned it a dozen times already. But Donovan, where can people find and support you?
I hope you didn't hurt yourself rolling your eyes that hard.
They practically hit my brain stem.
My primary headquarters is stop it. Questions we don't have answers at QNoAnswers.com, where myself and Harrison shoot, or Harold, go over social political topics and we discuss them with a background in science fiction and comic books. For example, our most recent episode as of this recording, if you might notice the Capitol riot, some people have been adorned in the Punisher skull logo. So Harry and I discussed possibly if the Punisher character needed to be retired, which some comic book professionals had advocated for. So I talked about the comic history, and we talked about all of the movies and the Netflix version, and said which one of these versions do people like that, like the alt-right folks, look up to the most? Is this worthy of taking them out of circulation? Is this separate, or is this like a copyright thing? And I think that was actually one of our better episodes in a while because I thought that we were quite focused and led for just some funny discussions because we're both Punisher fans, admittedly. But again, you can find us at QNoAnswers.com. Again, both Stella and I do work on the Batman universe, or you can listen to the Batman universe. And my Twitter handle is DonoDMG1.
Did you answer any of your questions regarding the Punisher?
Harry did. He did. And I was like, dude, you answered the question. He was like, nice. So he was really cool about it.
What episode are you on?
This is the most recent episode. It was published January 23rd, I believe. We're closing in on our 200th episode.
Wow. So one question answered.
Hey.
And a 200 given. So folks, broken clock is right 2 times.
Wow.
1 out of 200. You gotta be kidding me. Man.
How many times were you on this show? So we didn't answer the ones that you were on? You didn't answer those questions?
I certainly hope so. I was on the toxic masculinity. I was on the Birds of Prey.
Yes.
Empathy. I think I was on something else. Was the empathy different than toxic masculinity? You may have.
Well, that was all about the Gillette
thing.
The
teaching empathy one. Yeah. Yep. Yes. And then I was on the Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes. That was fun.
Yeah, I think I answered questions, frankly. I bring that show to another level when I come on. Oh boy,
So
howdy.
again, like avoid the episodes that Stella is on.
Did you
Utterly
say
useless.
avoid them? Oh
Yes.
man.
You can hear, you can hear how vague she is with her recollection.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Oh
it was fun
man.
times.
I think that our podcasts are like nemesis almost.
You don't have to be. I'm not wanting to be.
No, they don't. But you know how I like to create unnecessary drama. But I should, for this year, since it's a new year, I should try to come up with a new fake name for your podcast every episode to promote it.
Wow. So like how Babs says, like, underwear wonder or former boy wonder or man wonder. You're like, questions. They're so stupid they can't find their answers. Or something like that.
I wouldn't get that heavy, but no. I mean, I promote your show a great deal. It's
Yes,
just
you do.
within the promotion, there's some
A lack of respect.
libel. Yeah. Libel or the other thing. I can't remember.
It's slander.
It's slander. Jay Jonah. I was thinking about Jay Jonah as I was saying that.
Yes.
Well, anyways, hey, you know what? It's been a pleasure to talk to you, to see your little face.
My little face. I like to think so.
It's tiny.
Well, every time sometimes when I listen back to this, I was like, oh, she had a dig at me. I didn't notice it. Will I find some this one? It was fun. Thank you.
Might. No, it was, and it surpassed my hopes, or it met my expectations and hopes, because I wanted these to be different lists than, just out of the norm. And I think we hit that. And yeah, you feel satisfied?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I really was like, oh, is she gonna like make me mad with this? She can't possibly. So like I was worried, but I'm fine.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Okay. Well, remember, you can send any questions or comments to batgirltheoracle@gmail.com. Is there an email you would like to share in case people have comments to send to you?
Oh, sure. You can send all comics, death threats, swats, and dick pics at DonnaMark2468@gmail.com.
And by Dick, he means Dick Grayson. You can find the show on Google Play and Stitcher, like the show on Facebook, or follow it on Twitter at Batgirl the Oracle, and subscribe to the show on YouTube. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and be sure to support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. And the Batman Universe recently got a facelift, so you should check it out.
Yeah, it did.
Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. The next episode still coming out in February is, of course, Orpheus and Batman and whatever that story is. And I was able to secure the people that I talked about before, so that should be really interesting. First-time podcasters should be good. But until then...
Fly on Shipperinos? I mean, I don't know. There's so many characters here. Fly on Terra lovers. That's it, right? This is the Terror podcast?
Sure, we've transitioned, yes.
Fly on Babs lovers.
Goodbye.